There's no news except Corona news. I'm Cameron Porter, owner of Robin Hood Studios, and this is Venture Utah. Very excited for our show today. We have Alaina Rupe, the co-founder of BeginRich, Stephen Collard from Utah Accident Solutions, and our good friend Joe Rangel with To Evolve Coaching and Consulting, who will be joining us today. When I look for news stories to share at the beginning of each episode, I usually look for stories that have something to do with local business. And that has actually proven quite difficult over the last few weeks, as Corona dominates every news source. And the only other stories I can find are severe car accidents and other non-business related happenings. So I'm asking you for your business developments. If and when you have a change or development in your business, write up a press release and send it over to us. Make sure to include your contact info so we can reach out if we have any follow-up questions. Also, don't forget to like and follow the Venture Utah Facebook page, and please share this video. My business, Robin Hood Studios, has seen a number of interesting developments over the last few weeks. We are officially launching our Gold Coin program, a special discount program designed to make our production services even more accessible to small and micro businesses. We've been delivering gold coins to our strategic partners over the last week, and will continue to look for and bring on new partners who can give the coins to their clients to be redeemed for discounts up to 50% of the cost of the project. If you know someone who runs a business in the marketing sphere, consulting, strategy, website development, social media management, ad campaign management, etc., have them reach out on our Robin Hood Studios Facebook page or on our website to set up a time to meet to see if a partnership makes sense. We are also hiring. We are looking to add another member of our team here at Robin Hood Studios. We are looking for an office manager / Venture Utah producer. The office manager will be assisting in managing our video production team, following up on deadlines and making sure that finished videos are delivered to clients on time. This position would also monitor an email box and respond to submissions on our contact forms, and would perform a number of tasks related to producing Venture Utah. This position would also come with frequent opportunities to work on set with us and gain other valuable experience in the film and video production world. This position can be done primarily remotely from home, but you would have to come into the office at least once per week. The position is part-time for now, with pay depending on experience. You can head to the Robin Hood Studios Facebook page and click Jobs to find out more. Alrighty, and with that, we are ready to jump in with our first guest. Our first guest this week is Stephen Collard with Utah Accident Solutions. Steve, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
This is actually a momentous occasion. Did you know that you are, besides Joe and Scott, who are vision partners with the show, you are actually our first repeat guest ever.
Woo!
Woo!
What an honor. What an honor.
You got to get the confetti, so just imagine some confetti.
Add that in. Yeah,
Very
throw
good.
that in.
I love it. All right, so I've been super jealous of the fishing photos I've seen you put on Facebook, but in the age of the Rona, what are we seeing? Are you seeing any differences in the processes that people who've been in a car accident need to go through?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, with the virus and everything, all industries have changed, right? And this industry is not that much different in regards to precautions and the ways that we need to just make sure everybody's staying safe, right? You go back even last month, there was practically no cars on the road, which was kind of nice for those who were traveling, but everybody else was staying home. And it was kind of interesting, as we saw from that, even the insurance companies all kind of stood up and said, hey, nobody's on the road, we don't have any accidents, here's some money back. And I'm pretty sure almost every insurance company, at least in Utah, they did some kind of incentive or gave something back or did some kind of credit because there simply wasn't a lot of claims. Now that's good, right? But now that things are starting to move again, there's a lot of people on the road, and we're starting to see accidents, and we're starting to see injuries and all these things again. And it's almost like everybody forgot how to drive, or those who were driving got used to driving a little faster. But either way, we're starting to see a little bit more movement in the industry, which is fine. But as you know, because of the virus, there are some new precautions. You know, you're injured in an automobile accident, you need to go get checked out by a doctor. You need to be seen, you need to get x-rays, and you need to get treatment. If you have whiplash, you need to be getting adjustments and massages and everything that's needed to get you back and healthy. But you know, once again, we also are trying to keep everybody safe and the social distancing and all that. So really what the clinics are doing, and some had shut down. Most of them that work with automobile accidents, I work almost exclusively with accident treatment centers. So that's pretty much what they do. Car accidents, for the most part, is kind of their bread and butter. And so most of them all stayed open, but just with different guidelines, shut down a couple different rooms, spread everybody apart, cleaned everything like crazy, wore masks and all of that. And they're going to continue to do all of that. So it's still important to get treatment, but it's being spaced out a little bit more. Where before, if you're injured in an accident, the chiropractor would look at you and see the damages and say, hey, I want to see you a couple times a week, and have a little bit more intensive treatment and therapy right at the beginning. Now they're spreading it out a little bit more. They're allowing for, just kind of being a little bit more cautious on that side to just make sure we're all safe and everything's clean. So
that makes sense. And do you recommend that pretty much anybody who has been in an accident get checked out?
I do. I absolutely do. I always recommend that regardless of the size of the accident, it's very important to get checked out. And here's why. There's a couple of reasons. One, you never know how injured you are until you've had a doctor take a look at you and really check you out. Whiplash and other injuries sometimes will show up later down the road. Might be the next day, might be days or weeks or even months down the road, symptoms can show up. So it's always good to get checked out and make sure you're not going to have any issues going forward. The second reason is the verification, or documentation rather. I think it's important that anytime you're in a car crash, you need to go get checked out by a doctor and make sure that everything is documented right of your medical status at the point. And here's why. Say, for example, you're driving and you get hit and you're thinking, oh, this isn't that big of a deal. I'm a little bit sore, but I'm going to be okay. So you don't go to a doctor and you don't get checked out. What happens if the next day or the next week or even months down the road, there's a second accident? This time you're really hurt. You've got a lot of treatment, there's a lot of medical bills, and you go to file that second claim. Well, there's a good chance that insurance company is going to deny your claim based on the fact there were 2 accidents within a short amount of time. They'll recognize that you're injured, and they'll say, yeah, I see you're injured, but we're not convinced these injuries came from our accident rather than the previous one. Had you gone to the doctor and the doctor did an x-ray and checked you out and said, hey, look, you're okay, boom, it's documented, it's printed, it's there. So when you have that second accident, which again, heaven forbid, but they happen, right? They pile up. And so that way it's documented and you're protected. The third element is obviously there's a window when the insurance company will pay for everything, get you a settlement, and do all the legal stuff. You need to get your treatment within a short amount of time of the accident to make sure all those things go smooth and it doesn't become a big mess. So,
gotcha. Are there other steps that you typically recommend for somebody besides getting checked out immediately after an accident?
Yeah, so getting checked out is one of the first things. Obviously, your health is the most important. There are quite a few different steps. Depending on the accident, what the situation is, you need to call your insurance, you need to file the claims, and you need to make sure that the right phone calls are made. And that's part of what we do, is we talk you through that process. Say, okay, you were hit. What kind of documentation do you have? Did the police show up? Is there a police report? Do you have a driver exchange form? Have you called the other insurance company? Have you filed a PIP claim? Have you filed a There's so much to be done that there is a particular process that we try to educate people with. Here's the next step, here's this and this. And that's in essence what we do. We walk you through the process, hold your hand, and then connect you to the resources that you need. Okay, so here's the next step, and so on and so on. So depending on the accident, depending on the complication, if there's multiple cars, multiple insurance companies, if there are pre-existing medical conditions, there's all kinds of things that can pile up and make it more and more complicated. And so it's even more important that we get documented right and everything done in the proper order, so it's not a hot mess.
Do you see a lot of differences in the process for different types of driver scenarios? So, the teenage driver driving their parents' car versus an employee driving a company car. Are there significant process differences between those? Yeah,
so there are. Some things get complicated. For example, the law says that you can lend your car to someone, and if you lend your car to them, then the insurance is carried on that vehicle. But borrowing a car complicates things, because sometimes what if you lent it to someone who shouldn't have been driving? Right? Complication there, right? We're going to need to sort out how that's going to get paid. Work truck, you mentioned. If you're on the job, on the site, or in a company vehicle, sometimes that becomes a workers' comp claim, when other times it is an automobile claim, right? There's a difference depending on those. So there are a lot of scenarios where it changes things up, who's driving and what happens, right? In general, when there's an accident, if you're the one behind the wheel and you're not at fault, let me rephrase that. So the ones that get complicated, if you're a passenger, it's very simple, right? You can almost always find a policy to file a claim with. If you're the one driving and there's any kind of liability dispute, meaning your story and his story don't match up and there's not a clear-cut witnesses and police report and all those things, then it can get complicated too. I don't remember what we were talking about, but yes.
Okay. No, that's good insight for the different situations that, the idea that it might be workers' comp even though it was vehicle related. That's a really good insight, good thing to, it really helps explain why you do what you do and the value of what you provide. There's a lot to navigate after something like this, and a car accident can be a very complicated thing to resolve.
Yeah.
So I guess I am curious as to if you can do so while keeping it anonymous, if you have any interesting stories of accidents that you've helped out with.
Okay, I have. Yeah, I've gotten into some. I've worked with some pretty messy ones. I had a vehicle that was hit by a train once. Was pretty cool. He was drug almost a mile. He was in a big semi truck, pushed almost a mile. I worked with him a little bit.
Wow.
And that was crazy. And he was actually kind of okay. I've seen quite a few different kind of pileups, rollovers, cars light on fire. I had a gentleman a few years ago who, this is kind of a crazy story, but he had skin cancer, and so he had to wear long sleeves always. And so when he was driving, he got T-boned. The passenger side airbags popped out, and the ignition from that, the explosion, lit his sleeves on fire, and his shirt burned. And that was terrifying. And not only that, but he wasn't supposed to be exposed to sunlight, yet alone the burns were pretty severe. Anyway, some weird things that I do see. I've run across some real sad things where people are seriously injured as well as death. I mean, I've seen a lot. There's not a lot of things I haven't seen. And from this person stealing the car to borrowing the car and high police chases, all kinds of things. So yeah, it's kind of fun sometimes. And I don't know, I kind of like the complicated ones. Sometimes it's fun to figure out the puzzle. Okay, this car, this insurance, how is this going to play out? And try to help figure it out is fun sometimes too.
That makes sense. And that actually kind of brings up another question I've had for you, because you've been growing your business pretty rapidly and you've been doing really well. And I'm wondering what your secret sauce is.
The secret sauce, I think, is all about educating and all about giving information. Like, that's what I saw when I created this business, because I saw a lot of problems. People were getting taken advantage of. Claims were becoming messy, and the person who ends up getting kind of the short end of that stick was always the victim. And so, I started this to try to help them, to be that advocate, to be, that source of information. So I think the secret sauce really is just to give information. That's the purpose of these kinds of things, is to give the information that people need so they can sort it out. I think if you're an educated consumer, you can navigate through it more or less. But the thing is, you don't have an accident every day. And so to understand the whole system and the maze that lies beyond that, your average person doesn't know nor needs to know, really. And so if you can find a way to promote and to give the education to the people, then I think that's where success is.
Gotcha. So on Utah Accident Solutions, when is the right moment to call you?
I prefer to get involved right at the very beginning, to be honest. As soon as there's an accident, obviously make sure you're okay, police show up, all that stuff. But within the same day or immediate from the accident, it's usually good for me to get involved and kind of walk you through the proper steps. We can come in and help out if things are big and messy down the road, but ideally if we get, if we're talking to someone right at the very beginning and getting them to make the right steps and to move forward in the right direction, we can avoid most all the scary things out there, right? So yeah, to answer your question, right at the beginning, I want to be involved. As soon as you have an accident, I'd like to be one of the first people that you call. Call, obviously, the police and make sure everybody's okay medically, and then give me a call somewhere around then, and I'd love to help out and make sure things go smooth.
Okay. Well, that's perfect. What is the best way to get in touch with you?
So you guys can give me a call. My number is 801-458-2478. That'll come directly to me. I've got a website, utahaccidentsolutions.com, as well as Facebook, a little bit of Instagram. You can find me anywhere on there. But yeah, give me a call, send me a text if you have any questions. My consultations are free. I don't charge anything for my service. I'll talk to anybody, help them sort it out, connect them to any resources they need.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Steve.
Okay, thank you.
Alrighty, our second guest today is Alaina Rupe with BeginRich. Alaina, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so I know I said we're going to do education and promotion, but I do want to really quick explain just the elevator pitch. What is BeginRich?
So BeginRich is essentially the one-stop shop for entrepreneurs or like-minded people that really want to be the best version of themselves, have all of the tools, resources, education that they need to grow and succeed and to begin rich. So start their lives out with wealth and with abundance in every area.
That's a really good message, because the conventional wisdom is that you start out poor.
Yeah.
You start out poor and you bootstrap and you do everything you can and you slowly grow and eventually you become rich.
Right.
So the Begin Rich, I think, is a great message. Thank
you.
As you've been working with clients and doing things through Begin Rich and beforehand, you've worked with a lot of small businesses already in your career.
Yes.
So what are some of the most common things you see small businesses struggling with?
So that's a great question, because there are a lot of different things and it depends completely on the business and the industry. But I think ultimately the number one thing would be lack of education. You don't know what you don't know, and there's so much out there to learn and to grow, and it's always changing. Like, especially with today and how the world is, every single business has to pivot and make changes, otherwise they will fail. And so always improving yourself and trying to be the best at what you do and evolving is a great way to make sure that you can succeed, just finding out great education. And in doing so, a great way to do that is to not work alone. You don't have to do it alone, and that's one thing that we really push with BeginRich is that we want to be there to help businesses and entrepreneurs, independent agents, consultants, no matter what it is that you're doing, feel like you have that support that you need and the education behind it from other industry experts that we bring in, so that you have that education and don't have to do it alone. And then another thing is, of course, lack of capital, because so many businesses struggle because they are bootstrapping and they're struggling and they're trying to make it work. But there are lots of different ways that you can get the financial backing that you need to grow your business so that you aren't as stressed. Things like government grants or scholarships from different industries, pitch events with investors, angel investors, business loans, and also a great way is just to kind of refine your revenue stream. So if you can start making sure that you're generating revenue and you have multiple sources of income, I think that's another hiccup that a lot of startups and entrepreneurs face, is that they have just one focus. This is how I'm going to make my money. This is what I'm going to do. But ultimately, you want to spread your eggs out. You don't want them all in one basket. And the more you can diversify and have different ways for generating revenue, the more capital you'll have, the less stress you'll have, because you'll know that you can bet on different things.
So what's the balance between diversifying and niching?
Yeah, it's a great question, because I was just going to say, to the opposite point of that, you don't want to feel overwhelmed.
Sure.
So I think with having your niche, I want to try to think of a specific example. We'll talk about BeginRich, for example.
Okay, sure.
So for BeginRich, we have lots of different services. Like, we offer coaching and consulting for businesses. That's one revenue stream. Another revenue stream is working with partners who can help our clients out. And they give us a little bit of love when we're able to help them out if it's a good fit. So that's the second revenue stream. We also have products and services, like we can offer planners and pitch decks, business plans, different things like that. That's another revenue stream. So there are different avenues in which we do for how we can help our businesses, yet they all are under one roof. They all make sense, they go together, and so it's a way that you can say, well, I just have to do all of this coaching, I have to spend my time working one-on-one with people, and that's how I'm going to make my money. Well, for me, that would just take up too much of my time, and I wouldn't have enough time in the day to be as financially free as I would like to be. So having other revenue streams allows me to alleviate that stress, know that there are different ways in which I can make money and begin rich.
So the diversifying really is about how you service your market, where niching is
Right.
about what market you're serving.
Exactly.
Right, okay,
That's
so
a great way to put it.
So, the CEO of Walmart is probably not going to be super interested in BeginRich, but I am.
Yeah.
You are.
Yeah.
Everyone probably listening to this show is.
Yeah.
Because you've niched into the small business. You've niched into entrepreneurs. And so there's,
Exactly.
okay, and that makes sense. You're diversifying what products and services you're offering to that niche.
Yes.
So let's see. You talked about lack of education is a pretty common one.
Yeah.
And then lack of diversity in their revenue streams, or lack of capital. That was lack of capital, and then
kind of ties together.
Anything else that you see pretty frequently?
I think yes. So one would be, this one kind of contradicts itself as well. So
Okay.
it'll be a fun one to play with. But knowing your strengths and sticking to doing what you are best at. A lot of business owners try to, and you have to, when you're starting up, you have to do it all. I mean, you are the one-man show, you wear 12 different hats and you're doing it all. But as you grow your business, it's great to figure out, okay, what am I best at, and am I spending the majority of my time doing what I am best at? And in order to do that, you need to kind of tweak and make some changes and make sure that you're delegating things that you aren't the best at. But while you do that, you want to make sure that you're staying true to yourself and to your brand. So knowing what your brand is crucial, and I think that's something that a lot of small businesses struggle with is, what is my brand? And it's more than just the logos and the font. It goes back deep to what's going to be connecting with your clients and your target audience and speak their language, not necessarily what's your favorite color. So my favorite color is blue, but my audience wants to see orange, then I better put out orange for them. So it's kind of, this is a lot of things in one, but knowing who you are and having a brand that represents what your clients are looking for at the same time. So that's something that a lot of businesses struggle with, and as we've been working with them, we find a lot of great companies that get hung up on having a poor brand, or they're a little bit too headstrong in what they want. Versus finding that balance. So that's why it's contradictory, because you need to know who you are and what your brand is, but you also need to be willing to do what's best for your business.
I love that. I see that all the time, and I've maybe learned the wrong lesson, but the lesson I've learned from it is that your customers, your target market, they don't necessarily actually care if you're authentic. What they want you to be is consistent.
True.
And they don't really believe that you can be consistent if you're not authentic. And so they say they want you to be authentic, and what they're really looking for is consistency.
Yeah.
And and there's elements of the things the ways we brand Robin Hood Studios that are very separate from my own personal preferences.
Yeah.
Green is not my favorite color.
Yeah.
Green is everywhere in my branding. And so it's exactly that. It's what customers are looking for. It's what fits together with the brand and all of that. And I love how you talked about being who you are and not being afraid to be who you are, but don't get hung up on a certain way of doing something. And I made that mistake when I first was getting started. I wanted to grow a certain way. I wanted to find a partner, a business partner, and then maybe another business partner, and then hire an assistant. And that's how I wanted to grow. I was like, this is the way I'm going to grow. And then a little while later, I realized, hey, this isn't working. And I was hung up on it, and then I realized, okay, I need to grow in a slightly different way. And I've been doing that, growing in a way that allows me to do what I'm best at and what I enjoy the most, and take the things that are sucking my life energy and things that are draining my time away from revenue generating activities. The most valuable things that really only I can do anyway. The things that only I can do versus things that somebody else could do for me.
Exactly,
Yeah, it's been a big difference.
I can tell, and knowing you and seeing your brand grow, I think you've been doing an amazing job, and I love watching that. I love watching that because you can tell that you're pivoting and you're making these changes to grow and to expand, and that's what gets me really excited, is seeing people do that and chase their passion. And that's another thing that you bring up. A lot of people, I think, go into something for the money. They're looking for that get rich quick thing, or they're like, ooh, this could be really successful, versus doing what you're doing and doing what drives that passion and lights that fire and gets you excited to get out of bed every morning. And if you want to succeed as an entrepreneur, you have to be patient, and you're not going to be able to be patient if you don't love what you do. And so I love that you mentioned that and brought that up.
That's great. That's a really powerful way of putting it. You can't be patient unless you love what you're doing.
Yeah.
If you don't have some driving force behind it that's keeping you waking up in the morning, keeping you moving forward, then It's just not going to work.
Yeah.
Human capacity only goes so high.
It's true.
And you can't expect yourself to be more than human.
Right.
You know. So
Love that.
as you deal with these type of with these common issues, the lack of education, lack of capital, what do you find are the best way to address those?
So for us, what we do, and I am super grateful and excited because my business partner, as you know, is my dad. And I'm so glad that I get to work with family. But he's also an industry expert. He's been helping businesses grow for, 20, 30 plus years. And I have about a decade now under my belt where I've been working with different businesses and climbing up that corporate ladder and learning a lot as I go along. And so together we're a great dynamic duo. We are able to balance things out, look into, what's worked in the past, what will work in the future, how can we be a little bit of creative and think outside of the box for our clients. So the best thing that we found is just sitting down and getting to know an individual and a business one-on-one. Because like I said at the beginning, it's so different for everyone. And even if you're in the same industry, your needs might be completely different. And so what we do with BeginRich is we have education classes every week. We do master classes, which are amazing, where we bring in industry experts to talk about what they are the best at, and they help educate all of our BeginRich members and give that education on a grand basis. And then we take it from there and go into a personal one-on-one brainstorming session, or working in a group setting where if they want to do a mastermind session and get lots of different opinions. But the one-on-one brainstorming sessions are great because it lets us take a deep dive, get personal, talk about those pain points that nobody wants to talk about. Nobody wants to admit that they have anything wrong, but the truth is every business does. We do. Every business is growing, and you should be. And if you can accept that and you want to get to that place where you want to grow and succeed, that's when you're going to start breaking barriers. You're going to stop plateauing, and you're going to level up. And so that's what we love doing, and that's kind of how we do it, is with those one-on-one sessions with all of our members.
And that provides a great opportunity. The last thing you'd ever want to do for your marketing, public facing, is get in front of the camera and talk about all the things wrong with your business. Right. You know what I mean? And you go to networking groups and everyone's a potential client. It's not just that you don't feel comfortable. It's also kind of a bad idea to be like, oh, I can't keep track of my books. I don't remember who's paid me. That's really not the kind of dirty laundry you want to be airing. Right. But it needs to be aired somewhere because it needs to be resolved, and you're not resolving it by yourself because you can't, because you're human.
Yes.
So having an avenue to do that, a productive avenue with people who have worked with companies and know how to resolve the issues, it's invaluable, I think. So we do have to wrap up. I apologize, but what is the best way for people to get in touch with you?
So you guys can check out our website. We are revamping it right now because we're improving as well. So it's beginrich.com. You can email love@beginrich.com, or you can call or text me as well personally. So Alaina Rupe, it's 801-577-2095. And we love working with awesome entrepreneurs that are passionate about their business. So.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Alrighty, our final guest for today is none other than Joe Rangel with To Evolve Coaching and Consulting, good long friend of the show. And we're going to talk about a very interesting topic today, in my opinion, and that is conflict resolution. Joe, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
As you can see, Joe and I are in a very heated argument. We're sitting so much further away than we normally do. And he's wearing a red shirt, which communicates that he's aggressive in some way. I don't know. So I'm making that up. Anyways, we talked about talking about conflict resolution, and I think you mentioned that probably the best place to start is just by defining conflict.
Yeah. So what is conflict to you?
I would say conflict would be when two perspectives don't match up.
Okay. When
two perspectives on either a factual situation or an opinion situation don't line up.
Correct.
Conflict is created.
So what then would dictate a resolution?
I guess either a lining up of those perspectives or an acknowledgement that it's okay for those perspectives to not line up.
Yeah, so the latter is a lot of times what would take place, especially if there is a difference of opinions. There's that old adage, let's agree to disagree.
Sure.
But there doesn't have to be a disagreement if you have different opinions. You can just have different opinions and be okay with that. To paraphrase Morgan Freeman, I posted a thing on my site the other day that was a quote from him, and then there was an article attached to it. But he said that we can disagree on an idea or an opinion and still be friends. And I think it's really important because in today's day and age with so much social media and virtual marketing and everything going on, people can unfriend you in a heartbeat because they didn't like something you said in the moment that could have been a momentary opinion, with, you know, which upon further discussion could have actually maybe shifted a little bit. Who knows? Or somebody misconstrued something. And, you know, in the article he goes on to say that we get sideways on opinions and ideologies all the time, and most of it is not, it's not worth arguing about. It's not worth losing a friendship over. Every once in a while, like we kind of touched on political stuff, religious stuff, sports stuff, you know, there might be something that's important enough to you as a person where you do decide to not have that person in your life anymore. That's okay. We're not supposed to get along with every single person on the planet. That's not the way that we're made to be. And yet if we could all get to a place of understanding, perspective, we'd be in a lot less battles. You could, I think that you can have two varying, massively different points of view, and both people be right about their point of view from their perspective. And if we stayed in that space, and we don't have to be in these big battles, we can have discussions instead of disagreements.
So with a lot of your clients, I mean, have you noticed a pretty standard or common negative mindsets, negative patterns of thought that make conflict bigger than it needs to be, or create conflict where there needs be none?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, the polarization of ideologies. So when we get stuck on what we call the need to be right, on an opinion or idea, in that moment, that opinion or idea supersedes the value of a human being in that moment. So if you look in history, there's all kinds of places in history where you could see millions of people killed over one person's ideology. I think the greatest example is to go back to Nazi Germany in World War II. And one person propagated hatred towards a race, and millions of people were killed. Now, he had help, and he was sick and delusional. But fact of the matter is, he was also very charismatic and could convince people to follow his way. You know, if we were to just take a step back from that, and people were to go, well, maybe it's not wrong to have brown hair, and maybe it's not wrong to have brown eyes, and maybe it's not wrong to follow a different faith, you know? And people started doing that. In the end, if you think about World War II, the only thing that really stopped Hitler was he got greedy on two fronts.
Do you feel like the need, I really caught on to when you said the need to be right. Where do you think that need comes from?
So it comes from an internal thought process that starts to get fixated on something that we feel is right or wrong. Like, I don't know, tell me something morally that you think is right and wrong. Well, let's talk about something, because I was going to tell you something right before the interview. Thievery, stealing things.
Thievery, okay, stealing.
Is that wrong?
Yes.
Okay. But in India, it's revered. There are sects, thief sects, S-E-C-T-S.
Sure, Joe.
But there are thief sects that actually revere being a good thief. Now, over here, we think it's wrong, and we punish people for it. In the Middle East, you can lose your hand for taking a piece of candy. You know, so there's different extremes in thought process, but that's an example of how societally something can be way different from different perspectives.
Now that brings up an interesting question, and which is, do people who live together in a society need to have some basic shared beliefs?
I think we need to have rules. I think rules and structure and order. I honestly believe rules, structure, and order lead to freedom, true freedom. Because if we can understand and work within a framework, then we can be liberated. We don't have to, sit there and wonder and worry. Now, do we always agree with a rule? I don't know. Do you ever speed? I do.
Not on camera. Not on camera.
I'll answer that. Sorry, I hit my mic. You know, if I were to say I believe that speeding is against the law, I'd say that's valid. You're not supposed to speed. Do I speed sometimes? Yeah. If I'm in a hurry trying to get somewhere and not paying attention, I might speed a little bit. That doesn't mean I really look at the rule or the law and say that it's bad. You know, it's there for a reason. You know, because we follow structure and order, there tends to be less accidents, I think, than there could be. If we were all driving 100 miles an hour down the road, maybe we would have more accidents. You know, again, but that's a pondering. Don't know that for a fact. We haven't tried that yet.
So when someone is consumed, and I've noticed it hasn't happened as much as I've gotten older. I think I've just gotten mellower as I've gotten a little older. But I can remember many, many times when a conflict has enveloped my mind, and it seems like I cannot break free from it. I can't focus on something else. I'm thinking about, oh, well, they said this. I should have said this. I should have said that. And then if it's a conflict on Facebook, that can go on for days.
Good.
Because you hop on and you comment and you wait and they comment back and it just keeps going and going and
Which is a
going.
massively good use of your time.
Yeah, no kidding. So when someone is in that state of mind where their mind is being enveloped by this conflict, how do they break free?
So I teach stepping back. One of my mentors actually gave me a hand gesture to use. You know, when he was first teaching me about the process that I teach, he put his hands in front of him and, you know, pulled back. And I've always had that as a mental construct in my head, that if I get stuck on something, if you can't walk away, like if you're in a conversation, mentally take a step back. Because once you start to get grabbed by an ideology or an opinion, which is, it is. I mean, we could even, like we talked about facts, people can get all wrapped up about an opinion over whether a fact is not true or not, even though it's a fact. But if you can step back from it and make allowances, then you don't have to have a battle. We don't have to be in the middle of a conflict, which then goes back to there would be no need for conflict resolution if we could just learn to have discussions instead of conflicts. I think a long time ago in one of the episodes I talked about an amygdala hijack. And Dr. Dan Goleman has done most of the work on an amygdala hijack. And once your brain gets hijacked, and it gets robbed by your amygdala starts to rob blood and oxygen from your prefrontal cortex. So the same part of your brain that creates fantasy and fight or flight and, you know, or catastrophizing, it's the same part of your brain that gets wrapped around polarization. And once it grabs you completely, kind of all reason goes out the door. And maybe there's some things that are worth discussing. But most of the time, we get mad over stuff that really doesn't matter in the big scheme of things. In point of fact, a lot of times husbands and wives will get into a disagreement, and the husband will later, you know, go to say something to the wife, and she'll be like, "You need to apologize," and he'd be like, "For what?" "Well, you know, we got in that big fight the other day, and you said this. I don't even remember what we were fighting about." And sometimes the other person wouldn't even remember. So I'll give you a really quick example because I know we have to wrap, but I did this one time with somebody that was live with me. And I was trying to explain this, how two things could be right, from different perspectives. So we had a stereo cabinet in front of us where I could see the back corner, that back left corner, but from his perspective over there, he couldn't see that back left corner. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And I put a can of Coke in the back left corner. And I said, "Hand me the Coke." And he said, "What?"
"What Coke?"
"What Coke? Where is it?" Now, we're same distance, but from a different perspective. I said, "It's right in front of your face." "No, it's not. I can't see it." Because you can't see it doesn't mean it's really not there. And so I said, "Come over here and sit beside me." And then he sat beside me and goes, "Oh, it's right in front of my face." And all it was a difference of point of view. We changed point of views. And I think if you can kind of look at conflict that way, take a step back, step into that other person's world, do your best to understand what it's like to be coming from their perspective, then we can resolve conflict or maybe even get to a place where we don't have conflict.
And so that's all. We were discussing what to do after you have kind of gotten enveloped, taken that step back, shifting perspectives. This is probably going to have to be the last question because, as you mentioned, we do need to get wrapping up. But what about before? How can you cut it off at the thought?
So what you'll notice, I think all of us will notice, that we get some kind of a physical reaction. So when we start, let's say I said something to you today that really burned you up, you'd start feeling it. You can feel it in your neck, sometimes your head, sometimes people get a tightness in the chest, stomach. But you can start to feel, man, this is bugging me. We can feel it watching the news sometimes today. All of us can, from any different perspective. But when you start to feel that, if you can grab it before it completely envelops you, then you can take a mental step back and go, wow, I'm way attached here. And what am I attached to? What's bugging me? And take a step back before you even get there. Once it grabs hold of you, it's hard for you. Look, it happens to me. I practice this stuff all the time every day, and I can still get ticked off at something. And it's very momentary. I catch it and move away from it because it doesn't serve me. But I'm human. And things aggravate me, and I step back from it and go, wow, this is really interesting. So I do my very best to even be open to perspectives that I think are, in my opinion, completely wrong. I want to listen, I want to learn, try to step into their world, have conversations with them, ask questions. If you can ask questions instead of making demands and statements, that diffuses a lot of the energy.
Mm-hmm. Well, I wish we could keep going on this for a long time, but unfortunately we do have to wrap it up. So thank you so much for being here, Joe. And thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Venture Utah. We will catch you next week at the same time, Friday at 10 a.m. And don't forget to like and share this video and follow our Facebook page. Thanks so much.